Case Unframed Part 1. I'm going to be discussing and presenting evidence that a lot of people haven't ever seen before. And this evidence is going to be posted to GrantHayesUnframed.com. In later sessions, you will hear me refer to the Unframed Facebook page as the location where these exhibits are uploaded. However, when I recorded those sessions, there was no website. And so I'm just letting you know up front that the exhibits will be posted at GrantHayesUnframed.com. Okay, I was sentenced to lifelong imprisonment for the first-degree murder of Laura Ackerson. My wife, Amanda Hayes, is serving a 13 to 16-year sentence for the second-degree murder of Laura Ackerson. So we are two people serving two different prison sentences for killing one woman in two different ways. How is that possible? Well, we had separate trials, and in my trial, the state's key witness against me was a career criminal named Pablo Trinidad, whom I had been in jail with during the first 5 days of my arrest. Trinidad was facing 168 years for trafficking cocaine, so he used a bunch of information from the media to concoct a jailhouse confession that would get his sentence cut down to 21 years. Exhibit 19, which is posted at GrantHayesUnframed.com, in the section for the exhibits in Grant Hayes Unframed Part 1. Exhibit 19, page 1 says this: a Raleigh man on trial for killing his ex-girlfriend more than 2 years ago allegedly told a fellow inmate at the Wake County Detention Center shortly after the crime that he lured her to his apartment and that he and his wife strangled her because he was tired of a year-long custody battle over the two sons that they shared. This is an article from WRALnews.com website. On page 3 of this article, it says, Trinidad said Grant Hayes told him that he got Ackerson to come to his apartment under false pretenses by telling her he wanted to resolve the custody dispute. That's when he and his wife subdued her and strangled her. This testimony is the first time in Grant Hayes' trial that prosecutors have offered solid evidence implicating him in the actual murder. You can Google that article yourselves if you'd like to. Okay, let's see here. This testimony, once again, was the only direct evidence that I had killed Laura. And as you know, it came from a very unreliable source, a man with a lot of incentive to lie. The state's key witness against my wife, however, was her older sister, Karen Berry, whom Amanda, my wife, had confessed to prior to our arrest. Exhibit 4, which is another news article from WRAL.com, headlined, Amanda Hayes' sister. She told me she had done it, says this: testifying Wednesday in the first-degree murder trial of Amanda Hayes, her older sister said Hayes confessed during a 3-day trip to her Texas home that she had killed her husband's ex-girlfriend in an argument. Quote, she told me she needed to talk to me. It was serious, Karen Berry said, during nearly 2 hours of testimony, some of which was tearful. She told me Laura was dead and she had done it. Later in the article, there's another quote from Karen that says, she told me that Laura had told her that she had taken her children, and she, Laura, was going to take Amanda's 1-month-old daughter away from her. Berry said, I think I did not want to believe that she told me she was dead. First-degree murder is the unlawful, intentional killing of another human being with malice, premeditation, deliberation, and without legal justification. Second-degree murder is the unlawful, intentional killing of another human being with malice, but without premeditation, deliberation, or legal justification. Prosecutors have the power to create evidence out of thin air by rewarding desperate criminals for their sworn testimony. All the state has to do is publicize their theory for the crime by having, quote, anonymous sources close to the investigation, end quote, leak their beliefs and assumptions to courthouse reporters who then spread it to the public on the 6 o'clock news. Seasoned criminals know that whatever is reported in this fashion is what prosecutors hope to prove in court. So if their lucky enough to be in the block with somebody like me who's charged with a sensational, high-profile crime, all they have to do is help prosecutors prove their case by confirming their theories. On October 17, 2011, ABC News, ABC 11, WTBD, Raleigh news station, ran a story saying that I had lured Laura to my residence. That story is actually discussed and presented in Grant Hayes Unframed Part 3. And on May 2nd, 2012, WITN.com as well as WRAL.com both ran stories saying that Laura may have been strangled. So by testifying under oath that I said I had lured Laura and strangled Laura, Trinidad satisfied both elements of premeditation and deliberation, because strangulation is an intentional and malicious act. The man easily framed me for the murder that the state had described to the public. Prosecutors gambled on jurors believing that I had confessed to this stranger in jail. And people are always asking me why Amanda got less time than I did. Well, that's because prosecutors weren't able to prove the elements of premeditation and deliberation using the testimony of witnesses that they presented to Amanda's jury. See, Trinidad couldn't testify against Amanda because he had not been around her. But Karen Berry, Amanda's sister, could testify against Amanda, and all she had to do was just tell the truth, that Amanda had killed Laura after Laura had threatened to take her baby from her. I tried to get Karen to come to my trial and tell the truth, but as you'll see in Part 2, Prosecutor Zellinger led Karen away from this truth by asking her leading questions on cross-examination, questions that were designed to elicit false responses to give my jury the impression that Amanda's confession hadn't been made freely, but under duress. Exhibit 1, posted at GrantHavenFrame.com under the exhibits for Grant Haven Frame Part 1, is a letter from a post-conviction relief specialist named Mark Montgomery. This letter is to Indigent Defense Services. It says this: at your request, I have completed a preliminary review of the case of Mr. Grant Hayes. Mr. Hayes and his wife were separately tried and convicted in highly publicized trials for the murder of Laura Ackerson, the mother of Hayes' children. There was no dispute that Mr. Hayes participated in disposing of Ms. Ackerson's body. However, the case against him for first-degree murder was almost entirely circumstantial. The only direct evidence of his guilt came from an informant with hopes of improving his case by testifying that Mr. Hayes had confessed to the killing using information that was available in the media. Other than that testimony, the state's evidence was from emails, text, and the testimony of Ms. Ackerson's friends, creating a picture of Mr. Hayes as violent and psychologically unstable. So let's talk about how the state presented me as violent and psychologically unstable. In a trial, evidence is testimony, and testimony is evidence. The evidence presented in my trial that I had been violent with Laura came from the lives of her best friend, a woman named Heidi Schumacher. Schumacher testified that 2 months prior to Laura giving birth to Grant, our oldest son, who was born on May 2nd, 2008, she had shown up at our home to find Laura with a bloody nose and the beginning of a black eye. She also testified that I had threatened to kill both of them outside of a Starbucks in Raleigh in either March or April of 2009. Montgomery's letter says this: Mr. Hayes has collected numerous examples of discrepancies between the evidence presented and available documents, discrepancies that the jury did not hear. One of these available documents is a page from a parenting history survey that Laura filled out during our custody dispute at the request of a court-appointed psychological evaluator named Ginger Calloway. Okay, this is Exhibit 34. You can find Exhibit 34, once again, at GrantHavenFrame.com under the exhibits for Grant Haven Frame Part 1. Question 96 says, what level of hostility do you feel now exists between you and the other parent? Laura checked severe, leaving leaving life-threatening unselected. Question 97 asks, this hostility is also included, and underneath there's a table where Laura has checked financial manipulation, strong expressions of dislike, but Laura left unchecked threats of personal violence and actual personal physical violence. She also wrote over in the side, in the margin, Laura wrote this. This is an important question. Grant 3 has been quietly hostile towards me since I showed disapproval for his lifestyle back in 2007 after I caught him doing cocaine. Quietly hostile is a far cry from beating Laura up while she was pregnant or threatening to kill her in March and April of 2009. By the way, I didn't live in America in 2009 at all, and Laura recorded this in several documents that prosecutors had. Not only did I not live in America in 2009, but Laura moved to St. John in the Virgin Islands to live with me in March of 2009, and we had our second child in St. Thomas in August of 2009, and Laura moved back to America to live with my parents in October of 2009, all of which is recorded in Laura's documents. So it's impossible that Heidi witnessed me threaten to kill her and Laura in a Starbucks parking lot in North Raleigh in 2009 because Laura and I were never simultaneously in America in 2009. Also, Exhibit 35, which is an interview statement from one of Laura's friends and her business partner, Siobhan Massett, states this. Siobhan asked Laura,
you have 60 seconds remaining.
Siobhan asked Laura if Grant was physically abusive to her, and Laura told her no. Laura would only say that Grant was a manipulative man. Now, these two exhibits that I've shared with you, the first one is Laura's own. You know what? Let me call back because the phone is about to hang up. So, Exhibit 34, which I shared with you, the parenting history survey of Laura Ackerson, which you can go and look at. This is irrefutable evidence that I didn't threaten Laura or beat Laura because Laura wrote herself that these things never happened by leaving unselected threats of personal physical violence and actual personal physical violence during our child custody dispute, which is these are court documents that were in the possession of the state and in the possession of my attorneys. This is irrefutable evidence that those things never happened. Well, I would like to spend more time defending my reputation against all of the allegations that I was controlling and abusive to Laura. I can't do that right now because more important than proving that I'm a nice guy is proving that Laura wasn't murdered and that I didn't kill her. So before I present and discuss any more evidence describing my 3-year relationship with Laura, I'm going to spend the next couple of episodes publicizing evidence vindicating me of the murder described by the manufactured and fabricated evidence that the state presented to the jury. And I'm also going to expose the interagency conspiracy between the Wake County District Attorney's Office, the Wake County Sheriff's Office, and the Raleigh Police Department that led to my conviction. While I was in jail in 2011, 2012, and 2013, I sent legal mail to my defense team, my attorneys and the investigator assigned to represent me. The Sheriff's Department opened this legal mail, which is confidential and protected by the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution. They photocopied this mail, and they gave copies of it to the Wake County District Attorney's Office. They also gave copies of this legal mail to a Raleigh police detective named Jerry Falk, who was the lead detective investigating this case for the District Attorney's Office. Several of these letters, actually all of my mail from the month of July 2013, the month before my trial started in August 2013, all of my legal mail to my attorney, William Durham, was confiscated, intercepted, stolen. It never arrived. So I did not get the benefit of participating in my defense. my attorney to help him defend me against this charge, he never got him. And he never investigated my case thoroughly because he never got my legal mail because it was stolen. Now, in 2015, I sued the Sheriff's Department. At the website, Unframed.com, you can see the jail mail ruling by the United States Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in the download section. You can download this 12-page ruling, and you can get an idea of the evidence presented in this lawsuit. Right now, today is it's mid-October 2020 right now, and I am currently waiting for a court-hosted settlement conference between myself and the Sheriff's Office in Wake County. And if you know anyone who is in the Wake County Jail, you need to warn them that their legal mail is probably being read by the investigators investigating them. That Wake County does not respect the United States Constitution and does not protect the rights of criminal defendants to communicate privately with their counsel. You need to warn them. This is a public safety announcement that your constitutional rights are not respected in Wake County.